He's crazy, a real nut job. Getting rid of him relieved a great pressure. Not something you'd expect the President of the United States to say about the FBI director.
But that's what Mr. Trump said, according to the New York Times, right after he fired James Comey. And some claim that comment and more like it. But Mr. Trump could help make a case for obstruction of justice.
KCAL 9 political reporter Dave Bryan joins us more with those revelations. Dave.
Yeah, and the president may be relieved that today is the first day of his international trip. He's long gone. Tonight, President Trump is halfway around the world, but that hasn't stemmed the flow of controversy about his presidency. And we got a glimpse into how President Trump talks to Russian diplomats, calling a former FBI director, as you heard, a nut job. Now it appears President Trump and two high-ranking Russian officials may have had good reason to be all smiles in the Oval Office this month. The New York Times reports, according to a White House manuscript of the meeting, the president told the Russians about firing FBI Director James Comey. It was a move that relieved great pressure on him. That's what Mr. Trump told the Russian foreign minister and the Russian ambassador to the U.S. at the May 10th meeting. I just fired the head of the FBI. He was crazy, a real nut job. I faced great pressure because of Russia. That's taken off. Democratic Senator Patrick Leahy from Vermont tweeted, "This is what obstruction looks like." The White House press secretary did not deny the president made those comments, which could be interpreted to mean that by firing Comey, the president removed the pressure on him being generated by the Russia investigation. But Sean Spicer put out a statement saying by grandstanding and politicizing the investigation into Russia's actions, James Comey created unnecessary pressure on our ability to engage and negotiate with Russia. One New York Times reporter who worked on the story gave her take on the president's comments to CNN.
You can have two interpretations of this, adding to the sense that the president fired Comey because he was trying to end this investigation, which the president has denied. You can take a government official who we spoke to who defended the president's actions, was saying that this was actually a negotiating tactic, that the president was essentially trying to instill a sense of guilt into the Russian officials.
Several other reports are making news as well. CNN quotes sources as saying Russian officials bragged during the presidential campaign that they had built such a strong relationship with Trump supporter Michael Flynn, who later became national security advisor before he was fired, that they could use him to influence President Trump and his team. And CNN also reporting that some White House attorneys are researching impeachment procedures, even though they consider that a slim possibility. That story was broken by CNN Justice correspondent Evan Perez.
Two people briefed on the discussions tell CNN that the research efforts are informal and are being done out of an abundance of caution. White House officials believe that the president has the backing of Republican allies in Congress and that impeachment is not in the cards.
The White House says that report is not true. And the Washington Post reports a senior White House advisor, someone close to the president, is now under scrutiny by investigators who are looking into possible collusion between Russia and Trump campaign associates. All this on a day when Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein gave a closed-door briefing about the newly appointed special counsel to the House of Representatives. But one thing Rosenstein wasn't discussing was his poison pill memorandum that the president declared was a factor in the firing of FBI Director James Comey.
I think we are still puzzled about the memorandum.
Did he suggest that he was pressured in any way to come down hard on James Comey in that memo?
He avoided at least 10 times any question that would answer your question.
Rosenstein did talk about special counsel Robert Mueller, who will be spearheading the law enforcement investigation of Russian meddling and possible collusion.
Do you believe Mueller will conduct a fair investigation?
Absolutely. The definition of fair will not be a Republican definition. They won't like it. A Democratic definition, at times they won't like it. And the president, at times, will be frustrated. But again, this is about public confidence.
Well, there's been a lot of talk about the fired FBI Director James Comey lately, but not from Comey himself. That may be changing soon. The Senate Intelligence Committee released a statement tonight saying Comey has agreed to testify at a public committee hearing about his role in the Russia investigation, but no date set. That could still be a game changer. Jeff, Lena.